John and Ed, they're on patrol, chasing shadows, heart and soul. Cryptid hunter UFO, down this rabbit hole they go. In the woods and on the street, whispers follow their heartbeat. Alien eyes, giant's feet, all got shadows they all meet. Down the rabbit hole they dive, midnight secrets start to thrive. Mysteries keep them alive. In the dark, does truth survive? Haunted houses, midnight calls, endless echoes in the halls. Ghostly memories, secret falls, every clue, they chase them all. Whispers follow their heartbeat. Alien eyes, giant's feet, all got shadows they all meet. Down the rabbit hole they dive, midnight secrets start to thrive. Mysteries keep them alive. In the dark, does truth survive? Haunting walls, they've got the key. Hidden fears, they set them free. Cryptid hunter, you and me. Down this rabbit hole, let's see. Unseen worlds, they've got the key. Hidden fears, they set them free. Cryptid hunter, you and me. Down this rabbit hole, let's see.
Oh,
What have you done now?
I need a producer. I forgot it was about to stop. I went looking for something else. But hey, welcome. We are here. We are here in the flesh, so to speak, and live. Good evening, all. Good evening, all. Sorry about that little foxy's paw at the start.
Fox's paw?
Yeah, faux pas. Faux pas? Foxy's paw?
Yeah, whatever.
Come on, keep up. You're not very tired, Eddie. You all right, mate? Are you all right?
No, I'm absolutely fine. Yeah, a bit more knackered than usual this week.
Good. Well, I was going to say good, but that's not really. Yeah, I do still need the producer beats. You're right. So, good evening. Welcome. We have a little treat for you tonight. We have the Dodleston Messages. Well, I hope it's a treat. I've made a video about it, so we can sit back. Ed and I can sit back and chill out while we play the Dodleston Messages to you. Now, if you're on the chat, which I know some of you are, like Julie, Espresso Mechanic, Paul Armstrong, Beats and Tapes, if you're on the chat and you're getting an echo or a double audio, please let me know and I'll fix it. But don't tell me at the end.
Well, it's a rule of thumb for all technical problems. If the picture or sound is screwed up, let us know at the start.
Yeah. So it's a 15-minute video. So no, yeah, I know you're not getting it just now, Espresso. When the video starts, okay? Just let me know, okay? Cheers, mate. Cheers. Right. Apart from that, yeah, well, we're going to look at the Dodleston Messages. It takes us back to 1986 when BBC Micros were a thing. I once went to buy a BBC Micro and they were out of stock. And I
Used
ended
them
up
at school
sorry.
in about 1986.
No, it was about 80. It must have been about 83. I went to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
83, 84, because I'd saved up for it, and they were out of stock.
For the day, they were bloody good machines.
They were. I ended up. What did I end up with? I think I had I did have a Dragon 32 for a while, and then I had Amstrad CPC 464, with the built-in tape deck, and a color monitor. And then I had an Atari 520 STFM. That was pretty good. I liked the Atari.
That Atari was good. I had the Commodore 128D.
Oh.
It was D because it came with a disk drive, and it was had a keyboard that was separate to the computer, and you chuck a TV on top, and you could play Commodore 64 games and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, we used BBC Micros at school. I wrote little rudimentary programs on them, and
I didn't. I I'd left school just too early. The BBC Micro was out just too late for me to get to play with it at school. Computers were just starting to come into school when I left. Are you playing with your microphone?
No.
You aren't now because you stopped making the noise.
Well, no, I'm not touching the bloody microphone. Fuck's sake. I think it was BBC Mic. Certainly in the UK and Europe, it was BBC Micros that actually enabled schools to kind of get loads of machines in and start teaching kids computers. And we weren't. This is all still basic. Basic as in the computing language rather than. And it was in the days before x86s and. Oh
yeah, because once the 8086 chip starts coming out, then PCs start to become cheaper, and I ended up round about 286 and 386. I started building my own PCs and kept building them for quite a while.
Yeah, my first one was the 486.
Yeah, I used to build them and sell them to people. Right, apart from that, we shall crack on with tonight's show. We're going to give you a little video on the Dodleston Messages, and then we're going to talk about it, because talking's what we do best on this channel, isn't it, Ed?
Well, talking about conspiracy theories and rabbit holes and paranormal stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. I only first encountered this one when you suggested it earlier.
Okay, that's cool. Here we go. Before we dive into this extraordinary tale of apparent communication across centuries, it's important to understand that the Dodleston Messages remain one of the most perplexing technological mysteries of the late 20th century. What follows is an account that blends documented events with claims that have never been definitively proven or debunked. A perfect storm of technology, history, and the unexplained that continues to provoke debate about the nature of time and reality itself. In 1984, a high school economics teacher named Ken Webster, along with his girlfriend Debbie and friend Nick, moved into an 18th century brick cottage in the small village of Dodleston, England, near the Welsh border. Doddleston itself was unremarkable, a quiet parish, with a long history dating back to the Domesday Book of 1086, when it was recorded as a relatively large settlement within Atty's Cross in Cheshire. The cottage they occupied was undergoing slow, unenthusiastic renovations at Ken's hands. Little did they know that this modest dwelling would soon become the epicenter of one of the most bizarre technological hauntings ever recorded. The first indications that something unusual was happening at Meadow Cottage came in the form of traditional poltergeist-like activity. 6-toed footprints appeared in the dust, seemingly walking up the walls between the bathroom and the kitchen. When Nick attempted to cover these prints with paint, they reappeared the next day. Cold spots were reported throughout the house, along with moving shadows and sensations of an unseen presence. While such phenomena are typical of haunting claims, what followed was anything but conventional. The real mystery began one evening when Ken, Debbie and Nick were returning from the local pub, the Red Lion, which still trades to this day. They reportedly saw a pulsing green light emanating from their cottage windows. Upon entering, they discovered something truly unnerving. A message displayed on Ken's BBC Microcomputer, which he had borrowed from the school where he taught. What made this particularly strange was that the computer wasn't connected to any network, and that was typical in the mid-1980s, and no one had been home to type the message. The message itself was cryptic and addressed to them by name. Initially believing it to be a prank, Ken and his housemates began leaving queries on the computer, turning it on and then leaving the house. Upon returning, they would find responses. The first messages were described as deep and cryptic, discussing concepts like nightmares, fame, growth, and death, as if summing up life and death in one poem. As the exchanges continued, the entity identified itself as LW, and later as Lucas or Lucas Wainman. Eventually, the entity claimed to be a man from 1546, or 1541 as accounts vary. Living in the same location as Meadow Cottage, the messages from Lucas became more detailed over time, written in what appeared to be 16th century English, with period-specific spelling and grammar. They painted a picture of Tudor life. According to these communications, Lucas had lost his wife and son to the plague, harvested barley for ale, and made his own cheese. In one notable development, Lucas described his house as humble, made of red stone, and sitting on a pretty parcel of land. During renovations, Ken and his friends allegedly discovered a foundation made of red sandstone beneath their cottage, seemingly confirming an aspect of Lucas's description. Ken sought to verify the historical accuracy of these messages. Peter Trinder, who examined the communications, reportedly found the dialect, sentence structure, and intermittent use of Latin placed the messages in the middle of the 16th century in the Cheshire area.
Fairly early on that I was able to feel that I could identify the area that he came from, which was the southwest. And later, there were 2 or 3 words which were specific to the southwest. I mean, for example, that word pill, meaning a little inlet on the River Severn.
The messages referenced King Henry VIII being married to Catherine Parr, correctly placing the time frame in the 1540s. However, attempts to verify specific names mentioned, such as Richard Wishel, were unsuccessful. This is a critical point where evidence gives way to hearsay. While the general historical context seemed accurate, specific verifiable details were lacking. The mystery deepened considerably when a new entity began communicating through the computer, claiming to be from the year 2109. These messages had a different tone and style, often referring to the communicators as they, in the plural. That's spookily prescient. The entity from 2109 suggested that it was monitoring and sometimes interfering with the communications from the past. It claimed that Lucas Wainman was actually a man named Thomas Harden, a vicar from Gloucestershire in the 1550s, and that it had been deliberately obscuring certain facts. This added a layer of complexity and raised an important question. If this was a hoax, why introduce a second entity that complicates and potentially undermines the credibility of the first? Conversely, the introduction of a second communicator could be seen as an attempt to paper over inconsistencies in the original story. The SPR investigation, according to Ken Webster's account, the Society for Physical Research, sent investigators David Welch and John Bucknell to examine the phenomena. They allegedly devised a test where they would type 10 questions for the 2109 entity, delete them from the computer, and then see if responses would come without Ken or Debbie knowing the questions. Days later, the 2109 entity supposedly responded, addressing the questions in the correct order without explicitly repeating them. The investigators reportedly speculated that sensitive microphones could have been planted to record the sound of keystrokes, allowing Ken to deduce the questions. That seems to be a stretch. In a strange twist that further blurs the line between evidence and hearsay, Ken later contacted the SPR to obtain their records of the case, only to be told that there was no record of such an investigation. No record of an investigator named David Welch affiliated with the SPR, and John Bucknell had disappeared. Frank Davis, another teacher from Ken's school, reportedly visited to witness the phenomena. He described the computer room becoming extremely cold for 2 to 3 minutes before returning to normal. After leaving the room for a while, they returned to find a new message had appeared. On March the 21st, 1985, Lucas sent what appears to have been his final message. In this poignant communication, he indicated that he needed to leave Doddleston because the locals were very wary of him. He mentioned plans to travel to Oxford, where he would write a book about his experiences. The message concluded with an invitation across time. One day, you will all sit down at my table for wine and mead by the river in Oxford, where we shall read each other's books and laugh, and we shall speak of truth and good men watching Oxford change together for evermore. After approximately 2 years of mysterious communications, the messages ceased in 1986. Ken Webster later published his account of these events in a book titled The Vertical Plane. It's crucial to distinguish between what can be considered evidence and what remains unverified claims in this case. The actual text that appeared on the computer would be primary evidence, but we only have Ken Webster's published account of their content. Multiple individuals, Ken, Debbie, Nick, Frank Davis, claim to have witnessed aspects of the phenomena, though their accounts come primarily through Ken's narrative. Some historical details in the messages were accurate to the Tudor period, though this information would have been available in history books. The discovery of a red sandstone foundation beneath the cottage potentially corroborates one specific claim made in the messages. Perhaps the most damning counter-evidence comes from an analysis that found the frequency of objectives before nouns in Lucas's messages, which was 26%, matched almost exactly with Ken Webster's own writing style, 26.6%. This strongly suggests a single author for both. The Society for Physical Research allegedly claimed no record of the investigation. That contradicted a significant portion of Ken's account. Names that were mentioned in the messages, such as Richard Wishel, could not be verified in historical record. Even in the 1980s, it would have been possible to program a computer, even a basic one like the BBC Micro, to display pre-written messages at specific times. This would create the illusion of supernatural communication. Several theories have been proposed to explain the Doddleston messages. The paranormal explanation. Proponents of this theory suggest that genuine communication occurred across time, either through some form of psychic connection or through what paranormal researchers call a time slip, a temporary overlap between different time periods. The hoax theory. Skeptics argue that Ken Webster orchestrated an elaborate hoax, potentially with the help of his girlfriend and friend. The linguistic analysis showing matching writing styles strongly supports this theory. The publication of The Vertical Plane also suggests a potential financial motive. And then the psychological explanation. Some suggest that Ken Webster may have been experiencing some form of dissociative state or psychological condition that led him to create the messages unconsciously. The technological explanation? Another theory proposes that some form of electronic interference or technical glitch caused the computer to display text, which was then interpreted through the lens of the paranormal. The Dodleston Messages have maintained their grip on popular imagination, inspiring discussions, podcasts, YouTube videos, like this one, and continued interest in paranormal circles. The story has become a touchstone for those interested in electronic voice phenomena, EVP, time slips, and technological hauntings. Ken Webster's cottage still stands in Doddleston, a quiet reminder of the strange events that allegedly took place there. A Reddit user who grew up in Doddleston shortly after the events shared a photo of the cottage, noting that it has quite a large driveway to the rear that's used as the main entrance to the house. Interestingly, this same Reddit user mentioned that their parents, who lived in Doddleston at the time of the events, don't recall anyone talking about the strange occurrences until after Ken Webster and his friends moved out and the story made the news. As with all great mysteries, the Dodleston Messages leave us with more questions than answers. If this was a hoax, why did Ken Webster create such a complex narrative with potential contradictions that might expose the deception? If genuine communication occurred across time, why hasn't this phenomenon been replicated or documented elsewhere? What happened to the SPR investigators who allegedly examined the case but later could not be located? Did Thomas Harden, aka Lucas Wainman, ever reach Oxford and write his book as he claimed he would? Could there be another explanation that we haven't yet considered? Perhaps involving concepts from quantum physics or theories about multiple dimensions? Perhaps most tantalisingly, if the messages were genuine, what was the entity from 2109 trying to achieve by interfering with the communication? The Dodleston Messages stand as a fascinating case study in either genuine paranormal phenomena or the creation of an elaborate technological myth. Whether you believe they represent actual communication across the centuries or an ingeniously crafted hoax, they remind us that the intersection of technology and the unexplained continues to challenge our understanding of reality and the boundaries of what we consider possible. As we continue to push the frontiers of quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and our understanding of the nature of time itself, perhaps one day we'll finally unravel the true story behind the enigmatic green text that appeared on a simple BBC microcomputer in a small English cottage nearly 4 decades ago. Hey, well, there you go. What do you think? Strange one. No, you're muted, mate.
Absolutely fascinating one. I mean, so many questions. The immediate response is to kind of dismiss it as one of them mucking around, because obviously it's a computer, it can be programmed to do whatever. I mean, in terms of the guy from the past, how would the message get onto the computer?
Yeah, I mean, he's not sitting there with a replica BBC Micro made of wood, typing away on it, you know.
But even if it was a time slip and somehow some sort of interdimensional fracturing occurred and this person from the past ended up in the present,
How
or
would he know how to type?
Precisely.
Yeah.
How would he even know what it was? Because if you took someone from the 1500s and you showed them a computer, they would just not.
They would have no clue. And
have no frame of reference.
And let's be honest, if you showed someone in 2109 BBC Micro, they probably wouldn't have a clue how to work it. Because let's face it, show a Gen Z or a BBC Micro right now, and I bet they couldn't make it work.
Yeah. If you popped a kid from today in front of a BBC Micro, yeah.
I have a theory. I was thinking about it, and I think the technological, explanation, the one interference caused it, that's just nonsense, because the chances of interference making coherent messages written in Middle English are going to be very, very slim. And you've got to look, there's an awful lot of work gone into this for a hoax, because the messages are written in Middle English. They are spattered with Latin. And this guy wasn't a history teacher, you know? So you got to wonder if it was a hoax. He put a lot into it. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say one of the things that I heard that kind of swayed me in the direction of some sort of hoax was the fact that he wrote a book.
Yes, well, the last message was 1985, and he wrote the book in 1989. The book was
so he was potentially writing a book.
Yeah, the book was published in 1989. So let's say it took him 2 years to write the book. I don't think that's unfair. If you've never written a book before, so he pretty much started writing the book as soon as the messages had finished. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is, we've never seen him since. Just disappeared off the earth, basically. So's Debbie and so's Nick. So, if it was a hoax, he wrote a book, and it wasn't on the New York Times bestseller list, so it's not made him an incredible amount of money. And he hasn't done anything other than that to promote it, you know? I think there was a BBC documentary about this in 1996.
Well, that's the thing. If he was, yeah, I mean, if it's some sort of elaborate hoax that he's trying to make money, he would be like Lou frickin' Elizondo. He would still be milking that bastard to this day.
That's exactly who I was thinking of. I was just about to say, he's no Lou Elizondo.
And I mean, if the book wasn't widely known and didn't sell loads of copies, that would kind of it would gravitate towards him continuing the hoax somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe in a different location. I mean, one of the things that I thought was that it was a bit weird that the guy and his girlfriend move in with the Nick guy. So what was that all about?
He's a lodger. They had 2 rooms.
Right. It wasn't some weird menage a trois.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if there was a chair in the corner, you know, of the bedroom. But, you know, I don't know.
I mean, the fact of going to the pub and coming back and seeing strange shit on the computer. I mean, I'm not ruling out the possibility, but I don't understand how. I mean, it's one thing to have like footprints on the walls, some physical like that, or objects being moved around, or even this. I mean, cold is so subjective. It's like there were cold spots in the house. I mean, show me an old English cottage that doesn't have fucking cold spots in it somewhere.
Yeah, I know. My thought is that if this was genuine, right, and I'm not saying it is by any stretch of the imagination, because, you know, I do like to be evidence-based, but if this is genuine, I think the most plausible explanation is the psychic link, you know, where Ken has written the messages himself. And that ties in with, you know, the same writing pattern, okay? But he's become a conduit, a channeler, if you will. And I'm not saying that's real either, but, you know, this is to my mind the most plausible explanation, in that he has become psychically linked to it in some way or another. Now, that doesn't explain how the messages appear on the computer when he's not there. Unless telekinesis is part of it and he's projecting to the computer. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the thing is that if it's some sort of, not possession, but if he's somehow become psychically connected to this person in the past, and he's writing these messages out as if he was that person, then you would think that he would be more likely. It would be more likely that one of the other two found him in some sort of trance in front of his computer, typing away, and it's like, oh, dude, yo, and he suddenly snaps out of it. It's like, oh shit, what have I just been doing?
Yeah,
kind of thing.
That's true.
I mean, it's the fact of them going to the pub and coming back to find the screen on and this message sitting on the screen. I mean, did the other two monitor this guy's toilet breaks, and how far away from the pub is the cottage?
It's not a big village. It's not that far away. So,
well, that's the thing.
So there is.
Could have said,
yeah, I mean, if he had stuff prepared, I mean, he could have preloaded it as well. So he could just have ran home, hit the thing, went back, and said, "That was a rough job there." You know.
Well, I mean, the thing is that the old BBC Micro didn't have one of the sort of electronic switches that we have on laptops and computers now. It was an actual physical switch at the back of the machine. So in theory, he could have had the machine switched on.
Oh, but they left
with
it
some
switched
sort
on.
of. They left it switched on.
Yeah, when they went to the pub, they left it switched on.
Oh, right.
Because once the message, after the first message, right?
Because it's that first message that I was talking about.
Yeah, well, the first time he could have turned it on physically, no problem, because it takes no time to boot. It's not like today's computers.
And you have a floppy disk in the drive, and that's set up as a boot disk. You can have it start up and do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. Beats and Tape says 100% hoax. I don't know what the rest of you guys think. Maybe you could let us know. Paul Armstrong says that Lou Elizondo is the juicing descent whipping boy.
Yeah, he's our favorite love-hate figure. We love to hate him.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. I mean, he should be a little bit less fake and a little bit less trying to sell his bloody books and yeah, just a bit less fake.
A little bit less of a complete and utter dork, And
I mean, this one, there are so many questions, because if it is a hoax, it's a rather strange one, because whoever, assuming it's Ken that's the hoaxer, there's certain mistakes that are made. I mean, why suddenly switch to 2109?
Yeah.
And why 2109 specifically? Why not 2200 or?
And we didn't really get told what the messages from 2109 were. But what we probably need to do is read the guy's book. The problem is that, one guy, I was watching one guy who had said he'd read the book, or he'd bought the book to read it, and it was 100. He paid 165 quid for it, which seems a bit ridiculous because it's second hand, because it's not in print anymore. Having said that, I saw it on Amazon, second edition, for 1995.
So there's a second edition. Interesting.
Yeah, there was.
I mean, did this guy write anything else? It's like they seem to just drop off the face of the earth.
They did. They just disappeared after that. They moved out of Doddleston, and really, that's about the last we hear of him.
And it's the same as this character that's supposed to have been leaving the messages. He goes up to Oxford. I mean,
well, we don't know that.
Was there a sudden haunting of BBC microcomputers in Oxford?
We haven't come across any other, shall we say, affected BBC microcomputers. I mean, there's no trace of this guy, Lucas Wainman, and there's no trace of this Thomas Harden either. So, and it doesn't appear that either of them wrote a book. Maybe he got beset by, highwaymen or something on the way to Oxford.
But it's also, if there was some sort of way for people in the past to psychically access computing equipment in the present, might it not have happened more frequently? I mean, this is to the best of my knowledge, this is the first computer possession I've heard of.
Yeah, I know. No, there wasn't. Beats and Tapes was asking if there was pictures of the messages. Well, it was 1986. Nobody had a phone. Pictures would have been on film No, probably nobody really thought of taking photographs of a computer monitor. You know, so
it would have been much more difficult because with
Yeah.
those old CRT
Oh, yeah,
screens,
I
you
know,
couldn't
yeah.
you couldn't actually take a decent picture of
you couldn't.
the screen because of the scanning lines.
That's right. So yeah, there aren't any pictures. There's, in fact, the only real evidence we have are this guy Peter Trinder, who's a complete third party, who examined the writing of the stuff, and he pretty much said that as far as it went, you know, Middle English or Old English and the bit of Latin and the words used, he pretty much put it right in the right area for where this guy was supposed to be living, which is good, right? However, the rest of it is all just hearsay from Webster and from Debbie and Nick, you know, and really the only place we're getting it from is his book. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big ask to take it all on trust.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be impossible for someone even in the 1980s to figure out what the speech patterns were from a particular area, a particular time, and find examples of literature or whatever that, I mean, it's particularly to get the because period English is not, unless he'd done some research and unless he was familiar with the language. I mean, English it changes so frequently. I mean, there's words that
and between different areas. I mean, as you know, the accent changes every 8 miles. You know, it's crazy.
And also, I mean, back then, 8 miles was a lot more than it is today in terms of travel, because one would be limited to walking or horsing or whatever.
I think this is called riding.
Well, in Zambia, if you go walking, you go footing. So footing and horsing. But it's, I mean, it is super elaborate for a hoax. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe he didn't keep it going because he dropped himself in it because of the mistakes that he made with the guy in the past, and he tried to correct it with the future, and the whole thing didn't work and his book didn't sell, and he just got miserable and went to live in a monastery in Nepal or something. I don't know. I mean, it's a shame they kind of dropped off the face of the map, because it would have been interesting to see who the bird ended up with. Because if she suddenly shacked up with the Nick guy, then maybe it was some elaborate hoax to split up the relationship or something.
Some love triangle. Maybe it was maybe it was a lodger. It's always a lodger, isn't it? Maybe it was the lodger that was trying to split them up and make Ken think he was going nuts.
Maybe.
So maybe he then intended to get Ken committed so as he could take over the house and shack up with Debbie and live happily ever after. Or am I stretching it a bit here?
Well, I mean, to be honest, people have done stranger things for l'amour, as they say in France. I mean,
yeah, they have.
People are capable of all sorts of crazy shit.
Yeah,
but it doesn't. The thing is, because it wasn't sensationalized. It's like if he was doing this to make money, and it was this elaborate hoax that he was going to use to sell that he'd had this idea for a book, but the book was dependent on the hoax because the book was going to be about the hoax, and because computers were so new. I mean, we have to. These days, computers are everywhere. I mean, in your phone, in your car, in your fridge. It's ubiquitous technology and has been for a long time. But in the 1980s, BBC microcomputers were not necessarily cutting edge, but fairly close to cutting edge. Yeah. Certainly for people in schools.
Personal use they were, yeah.
And all of the things that you could, in terms of writing programs. Just basic things and having something happen on a timer, or just maybe he had this idea that why can't spirits possess computers? And so you come up with this elaborate hoax and then write a book about the hoax. And go off and retire in Bali or somewhere. I don't know.
Nectarinus has just arrived, saying he lost track of time.
Oh dear, pun intended, no
That's
doubt.
apt. Yeah. Yeah, you'll need to go back, mate, and watch that from the start, because there's a whole 15-minute video you missed about the Dodleston Messages. But you can do that in your own time. It's good to see you anyway. The TARDIS was late, he says. Yeah, I think on balance I'm leaning towards hoax, because I think the other things don't seem to have played any part. You know, the poltergeist activity, the sixth. I mean, who's got six toes? I mean, it's not Louisiana, it's England. You know,
Well, that's the thing, and also that the physical.
sorry if you
stuff,
live in Louisiana.
but the physical side of things, like the footprints and stuff, seems to have stopped as soon as the computer shit started.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, I just.
I struggle. I mean, like I said, I can wrap my head around how some sort of physical, something simple and physical, like a footprint or
Yeah.
moving an object in a room or whatever it is. I'm much more prepared to believe that than that some physical entity from the past is able to use a computer.
Yeah, I don't think he could. I don't think he could.
And also, if you think about it, in the 1980s, a lot of people couldn't use one of those things. I mean, there's an awful lot of people that wouldn't have been able to switch them on, let alone make it do anything.
Yeah, yeah. So what about then? Well, what about if it wasn't a human? What if this was like a interdimensional alien entity that was just mucking around with them? And I mean, I'm coming right out of left field
Are
now.
we going down the lizard people route?
That's I'm just saying.
Well, it's down
I'm
the
just
rabbit hole,
exploring.
so
I'm
it's
exploring.
not a down the rabbit hole episode unless we mention lizard people.
Yeah, lizard people. I'm just exploring all angles, mate. Exploring all angles.
Well, I mean, this is why it's an interesting thing to do, and one of the reasons I thought it was a nice idea for the show. Yeah, some sort of interdimensional, but why would the interdimensional entity just show up in that particular place at that particular time? Write a few cryptic messages in Old English,
Yeah,
and then disappear, never to be seen again. Also hasn't. I mean, if subsequent, because that cottage is still there.
Yeah.
If subsequent occupants of the cottage were experiencing something similar. I mean, does this thing use iPhones? Is there someone with an iPhone living in that house?
Yeah, okay.
Or a laptop, or a tablet or something?
But Lucas or Thomas, whatever his name was, he went away to Oxford because the villagers were looking at him or were quite wary of him. But why would they be wary of him? Unless he went and told them that he was communicating with someone in the 500 years in the future.
Yeah, but I mean, what would he say to them? It's like, I found this thing with, but because would he even be able to recognize letters on a keyboard?
Probably.
Or buttons? I mean, for us, buttons are ubiquitous, but for someone in the 1500s, buttons would not be ubiquitous.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the end of the medieval period. You'd be lucky if the guy could even read.
Precisely.
Yeah. I watched them. I watched them a video last night, which I don't know how I found this or how it came up, but it was. It started with, well, if you're watching this video, you've obviously just recently acquired a time machine, and you're wanting to know what to do when you go and visit medieval England. That's went on for an hour. It was freaking. The guy was so deadpan, right? But he told you everything that you needed to know if you were going to go and visit medieval England in your time machine and what it would be like. And I was thinking, there's no way these people would be able to work computers, because they would look at it. I mean, say you showed them a phone, they would look at it as magic, but they wouldn't necessarily burn you at the stake, because there was two types of magic. There was magic, people would do magic for entertainment, sleight of hand and all that kind of stuff, illusions. So if people were doing it for entertainment and they viewed it as entertainment, if you showed them something on your phone that was funny, they would probably go, yeah, that's magic and it's cool. And that would be it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they thought that you were using that magic to harm people, then you would be taken as a witch, which I thought was quite interesting.
But it would inspire a certain amount of fear as well. I mean,
well, it may or may not, because you see, the thing is, as the guy was saying, people in England weren't completely ignorant. They knew that there were other lands far away, like China and Asia and places like that, where you got exotic things that were very different from what they made there. And if you turned up with something that they had no, say you had like a plastic comb or something, and they look at it and think, well, that's obviously, if you said, oh, I picked that up in Aleppo or whatever when I was visiting, they would go, yeah, that's plausible, because it's from a strange and far off land.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Also, I mean, Britain's always been, because we're an island.
Yeah.
There's always been maritime trade and smuggling, and, as you say, contact with other cultures. But still, I'm still struggling as to how the big thing for me that points in the direction of a hoax is how the hell some spirit person from the deep past can actually make words appear on a computer.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, maybe if there was some sort of electric sprite spirits turning lights on and off and doing other electrical type things in that cottage, then perhaps I'd be a bit more inclined to believe that it could potentially influence a computer and make the computer do things. But I struggle to see how one makes a psychic connection with a computer across 400 odd years of time.
That's why I was thinking that the connection is more in the person rather than in the computer. And the computer's just a medium that has been used to express what that person thinks. But that still doesn't get over the fact that how would that person, that even if there is a psychic link with Ken, how would that person know how to operate a computer?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Surely if there was a psychic link, it would be more likely that a message would be written down in some... I mean, I'd be more inclined to believe it if it was a message written down in some like medieval handwriting that was sort of quite flourishy and using the different words like it's written on a piece of parchment or something like that. I mean, that would be more believable than stuff being typed into a computer.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, this whole
or has it all been the guy from 2109, and he just used he was just making a joke by pretending to be from 1540 or whatever.
Yeah, but then 2109, I mean, we're talking about 90 years away. And obviously a lot can happen in 90 years, but whether human technology gets to the point where we can influence computers that existed in the past, I struggle a bit with that one. Yeah. Also, why the hell would you want to? I mean, surely if you're going to do something like that, you would go back and...
Yeah, sometimes I say these things and then I think, why would you even say that, John?
Anyway, well, the whole point is we're shooting the shit. Yeah. I mean, it's an exploration of a mystery.
Beats says he could have watched a YouTube tutorial. He couldn't, Beats. Couldn't, mate. There was no YouTube. There was no network. The computer was standalone. You wanted it
Yeah, I
to
mean,
do
especially
something.
those BBC Micros.
Yeah, you wanted it to do something. You had to program it to do something, mate.
I
That's,
mean, they had no network ports. I mean, most of them didn't even have hard drives. The
well,
ones
they
that we
didn't
used
have
at
hard
school.
drives. They didn't have hard drives or floppies. They had, I think they had ROM chips that you could put in them. You could change the
Well,
ROM chip.
they had external peripherals. I mean, it was tended to be
latterly.
floppy.
Yeah, latterly.
And I mean, we had one machine in our computing room at school that had a hard drive connected to it, and the rest of them you had to load. I mean, you'd run it up, and then you'd write your program, store the program on a floppy, run the program off the floppy, and then when the floppy came out of the machine didn't have any idea what that program was.
Yeah.
There was no network connections at all. I mean, there was modems.
We used to connect cassette decks to them, and
that's a fair point.
And load and store programs on cassette tape, audio cassettes.
Yeah, and it had the coloured bars on the screen while it was loading.
Oh yeah,
and then you'd play one level of a game, and you have to wait for like 5 minutes to play the next one.
Yeah. Or you typed a program in from a magazine that never ever worked.
But then it's also why, if you were going to go through that much trouble to create this elaborate hoax that you then write a book about, why would you not? Because, I mean, he could have moved, he could have created another character, he could have had a follow-up novel. And I mean, that part I don't quite understand. The only explanation that I can think of is that he realized he'd made a mistake with the stuff that he'd done from the past character, so he thought, try a future character. And then that kind of went wrong as well, and he just thought, no, I'm just going to bin this and go and do something else.
Yeah. Let me check something.
I mean, it's a really enigmatic story, and however, if it was a hoax, it was a bloody brilliant idea, and it sounds like, certainly at the start, it was really well executed.
You know, yeah, you're right. But if it was a hoax, why didn't they just write a book about it, as in write a fictional book? Because that would probably have been just as good.
That's a fair point. If you have that idea for a hoax, you could actually, you could probably do a better job turning it into some sort of fictional story rather than trying to make it out like it actually happened. And the fact that, because I mean, even in medieval times, there were still records of people where people were born and died and lived and all this kind of thing. So you would think it would be possible to at least confirm one of the characters that are being mentioned.
No, we couldn't. Right. So the Dodleston Messages were featured in a UK television programme titled Out of This World, which aired in 1996. This show, presented by Carol Voderman, covered the case in 2 parts on August the 20th and August the 27th. It included a dramatisation of the events described in Ken Webster's book, The Vertical Plane, as well as a discussion featuring experts like Richard Wiseman and witnesses connected to the case. The programme explored the mysterious messages allegedly received through a BBC microcomputer by Ken Webster and his companions at Meadow Cottage in Dodleston during the 1980s. These messages claim to originate from a 16th century man named Lucas and an enigmatic entity from the year 2109. Probably someone
but do we not know what this enigmatic entity's name is?
No, we never got the name and anything. The only thing is that they used non-gender specific pronouns.
Are we sure it wasn't from 2025?
Well, that's what I was saying. I did say that.
But then
was
I don't think
oddly
that's far enough
prescient.
ahead in the future.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, there you go. Out of this world. Carol Vorderman.
Yeah, back when she had a modicum of credibility.
Yeah. People used to think she was the thinking man's Totty, and look what she's turned into. Complete and utter nutter.
Absolute Fruit Loop. I think all of that Botox must have gotten to her head or something.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that, because I think once you can't articulate your face, right? Bear with me here, right?
Once you can't articulate your face.
Yeah, well, when you've got all that Botox, you stop. You can't make expressions, right? And I think what that does is it tends to make you more of an unfeeling and unsympathetic character, because you can't express your emotions, and therefore, do you really have those emotions in the first place if you can't express them anymore? I think it's all connected.
Wouldn't surprise me. And it's also the sort of mindset that actually feels like things like that are important.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain, I don't know, not feeling happy in your own skin, that you have to change it, and you're not happy growing older, so you have to try and retard the process, and then you end up going to Turkey and getting bum implants and boob implants and God knows what else, and then suddenly you become this fake plastic person. I mean, have you seen that Katie Price's teeth? Oh my God! I don't follow celebrity gossip, but it came up on Twitter, and she literally, I mean, she's like, I don't know if she's like bought shares in a plastic surgery company or something, but the teeth are just like, oh my God. It's like fake.
Awful. She looks awful. The espresso mechanic says you become a robot in a human body if you do Botox. Yeah, I think you do. I think it affects you because you can't laugh, because you can't frown, because you can't express yourself. You don't try, and you become an automaton.
But it's not just the big expression like laughing or frowning, but there's also all sorts of countless micro expressions, like movement around the eyes, or rolling the eyes, or raising an eyebrow, or all of these things that we use to express emotion without necessarily saying something.
Yeah.
And when you're not capable of that sort of thing, maybe it limits the range of emotions that you're capable of, or I don't know. And I think there's also to do that in the first place, to take it to the point where your face is basically gone numb and you can't really move muscles in the same way that you used to.
Yeah.
That speaks to character as well. I mean, there's I don't know. I think it's deep, like spiritual unhappiness in there somewhere.
I think so.
Where you can't just grow old gracefully and just accept it. You have to constantly try and roll the time back. I think it does have a psychological effect, but it's a chicken and egg thing. Does the psychological aspect cause them to do all the Botox in the first place, or does doing all the Botox cause the psychological problems?
I think it's about both. I think it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, it does seem that way.
Once you've started, that's that. You're on that path, and I mean, some people just end up going to the ridiculous nth degree and looking absolutely ridiculous.
Well, you see some of these people who have taken plastic surgery to just, and then they are convinced. There's one woman that wants to look like Cleopatra.
Jocelyn Wildenstein. She's the Catwoman, isn't she? Have you seen her?
Yeah. I mean, I did. Yeah, I think that these are people that are actually really damaged and disturbed individuals who are trying to heal themselves by changing themselves. But you can't run away from yourself. It doesn't matter what you do to your face or your body. You still have to look at yourself in the mirror, and
it's wrong. that
Yeah.
doctors take advantage of these people and take money off them to do that.
I think that's the worst. That's the worst part of it, is these plastic surgeons that will just keep doing these surgeries, and the person comes with loads of money, and the surgeon just doesn't give a shit about the person. They'll just take the money and effectively mutilate them.
Yeah.
Because, oh no, we can do that for you. We can give you horns, or we can cut your nose off and make you look like a cat, or we can. I mean, it's the people who tattoo their eyeballs as well. It's just like,
Oh, good God, that's so dangerous.
I just don't. I don't
would
get
you do
it.
that?
And also the
crazy.
ones who poke holes in themselves here, there, and everywhere. We have too big. You see them sometimes with the too big. It's like, how do you even eat with those things in your face? I don't get it. And then they wonder why they can't get a job and things like that. It's just like, what?
Oh, good grief. Yeah, I know. It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
But it is a crazy world. So when you think about someone potentially hoaxing, I mean, the 80s just seemed so much more simple and quaint. I mean, we didn't have any internet. We didn't have nearly as much of this stupid Botox stuff, because I think a lot of this extreme Botox, and a lot of it is social media, and the fact that everybody's got a picture, has got a camera on their phone, and you have these people that are obsessed with selfies,
Yeah.
and also doing things for clicks and likes. I mean, I'm sure that there are people stupid enough to tattoo their eyeballs just to get a few extra likes on social media. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, Fluffy says there was loads of plastic surgery, yeah, in the 80s. But yeah, there probably was. But there wasn't the amount of bodily mutilations that you see on display these days. You know, you didn't have, I mean, you got the odd punk who would stick a safety pin through his lip or something, right? But, you know, it wasn't anywhere near like what you see these days. They just go way too far. I mean, how do these guys, imagine if the guy needed an MRI. You'd be there for hours taking all the metal off.
Well, that's the thing, and it's also I struggle to understand how these people look at themselves in the mirrors and in the morning and are happy with what they see when the face just looks like a pincushion. You got all the tattoos everywhere, and I mean, that's not. Maybe I'm just really old fashioned, but it's not attractive.
No, you probably are old fashioned.
I mean, in the 80s, we had plastic surgery, but it was people getting boob jobs and nose jobs and simple things like that. It wasn't going to a plastic surgeon and saying, cut my nose off because I want to look like a cat.
Yeah.
Or cut my ears off because I want to look like a.
God.
I mean, there was one that
I've just had a flashback.
Wants to look like a parrot and had his ears cut off. I mean, what the fuck?
I just had a flashback. We had a guy in Pollock who had his nose removed. Not deliberately. Well, yes, deliberately, but not deliberately by him, by someone else who maybe used a sword. And then he used to run about. The guy was a complete dead. He used to put a plaster over it like that, right? An X-shaped plaster. And he was in his cell one night, or one morning, and it was a change of shift, and I was working in the bar, and I went in to check the prisoners, and I opened the door, or I opened the hatch, and I goes, "You all right over there?" And they turned around, and he'd taken his plaster off. He looked like that guy out of, what was that? What's that, Borderland? No, what was that movie with the guy with no nose that was on the TV series that was on recently, the sci-fi series?
Oh, I know the one you mean.
He looked like that. You could see right in. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Oh. And then he was getting lifted one night. He was getting arrested one night, and somebody grabbed his arm and put it up his back, and he goes, "Hey, watch my nose." And we're like, "What? You don't have a nose?" And he's going, No, my nose is on my arm." We're like, "What?" And he goes, "They've stitched my nose onto my arm to see if they can get the blood flowing through it so they can put it back on." And that goes, it must smell awful when you wipe your arse.
Oh God.
Oh, I forgot
So how
about
did,
that.
how did we go from medieval people communicating by BBC Micros to strange Scottish people that have had their nose cut off?
Because of bodily mutual, I'd forgotten all about that. That was quite funny. I should really put that in my book. Anyway, I think we've probably done the Dodleston messages.
Yeah, I think so too. And I have to say, I'm inclined to say very clever hoax, but I'm
Yeah.
still not sure what the point of the hoax was.
I think I'm going failed hoax. Yeah, you know, a hoax that didn't quite pan out for the guys because I think they intended to make more money. But yeah, especially with the first one, after they came back from the pub,
Yeah,
they've
I
had
think
a few jars. They've thought, hey, what if we went in and said that something had come through on the computer? They probably just watched war games or something like that as well, you know.
or maybe the idea for the book was a collective one, and they'd been in the pub thinking about this book they could write about I don't know, possession of a computer or someone communicating from the past through a computer, and then they decided to go back and hoax it in an attempt to drum up interest for this book or something. And then when the whole thing flopped, they thought that I don't know, maybe they just realized that they were starting to look a bit silly or something.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I see you down there, Hatchy, all on your own in the vertical stream. Some man. But anyway, I think that pretty much covers it. I think it's a hoax.
Yeah, I think so.
There's no real plausible way for it to have happened, and there's no real plausible explanation for it other than a hoax.
It's a good hoax, though.
It's a good hoax. It's an intriguing hoax, and yeah, you know what? And you know what? When people say it's never been debunked, the problem is that's not how science works. If you're making the claim, you've got to prove it. You know, it's not up to us to debunk it. We can sit here and go, well, just give us some proof that it actually happened. And that's the problem. When you fall at the first hurdle, you don't have a case.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the problem. There you go.
But it's still a fun thing to spend an hour talking about on a Thursday evening.
It's been good. It's been good. And it's been great for you.